Freddie Felt 313. What's good, Jeff? Freddie, my guy. Appreciate you joining the show, as always. John Macaroon says, did Sam get the Lady Jane's intern to style his hair?
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. I got you.
People talking about the commercial again, dude. I don't know. I'm just trying to do the people justice by plugging that thing back in. So, that's all I can do. I'm doing my duty in helping the people out, helping D-Mac out so that man can flourish. It's the least I can do. But speaking of the least I can do, the least I can do is talk more about this Lions and Chargers game because, guys, this Sunday, 4 o'clock, on the West Coast, Lions take on the Los Angeles Chargers. And there's a lot of different angles to approach this game at. We could talk about the quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff. You could talk about Aiden Hutchinson, which we'll talk about later. The importance of this win, everything. But the question I have for everybody, and Sam, I'll let you go first on this, is what do the Detroit Lions need to do in order to leave LA with a victory? What is one or two things that the Lions absolutely must do on Sunday?
All right, so I have kind of a list. Whenever I get asked questions like this, I take a look at what their opponent does well and what they don't do well. And when it comes to things that the Chargers actually do exceptionally well, there are more things than you would think. First of all, the Los Angeles Chargers have a +9 turnover differential, and the Lions' turnover differential is actually kind of average at 0. The thing about the Lions is their defense hasn't forced that many turnovers. They forced some really big ones, like the Brian Branch pick 6, for example, but Jared Goff has thrown a couple of himself, and David Montgomery had that bad fumble. It wasn't really all his fault, but it resulted in a touchdown against Seattle. This defense, even though it has had some pitfalls, has been opportunistic, and Justin Herbert has done a really good job of taking care of the football. So you can't turn the football over, and it would be nice if the Lions could force one, maybe an Austin Eckler fumble or a Justin Herbert interception. Another thing that the Chargers do well, that the Lions actually do well to counteract that, is the Chargers are actually 3rd in the NFL in sacks at 31, led by, of course, Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, who have both had very, very good years. But the good news is the Lions have a damn good offensive line and one elite tackle and one really, really good tackle who can help counteract that, because the Lions are 6th best in sacks allowed. They've only allowed 16. The Chargers have sacked the quarterback 31 times. So it's going to be a something has to give kind of moment. Mm-hmm. Another thing, though, in which the Chargers do not do well at all, in which the Lions really, really need to exploit, the Los Angeles Chargers are dead last in the NFL in passing yards allowed per game. Even though that secondary has some talent, Asante Samuel Jr. has had a good season. A guy like Michael Davis on the opposite end, he should not be a starting corner in this NFL. Absolutely. Whoever goes up against Michael Davis Michael Davis should allow 7+ receptions for 100+ yards and at least 1 touchdown when targeted, maybe even more. And even Derwin James. Derwin James is a very, very good player, but by the numbers, he's actually had the worst season of his career up to this point. But Derwin James is obviously somebody that you have to worry about, but he hasn't been the all-pro Derwin James this year. And the Lions, conversely, are 6th in the NFL in pass offense. We all know Jared Goff is having a great year again, kind of a similar year to what he had last year. And this is the game, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more later, in which the Lions have their fullest complement of weapons and offensive line that they've had all season, including the Kansas City Chiefs game. Because if you remember, during the Chiefs game, Jameson Williams was suspended. So that is something that the Lions absolutely need to exploit. They're going to need a big game out of Jared Goff. To kind of summarize, they're going to need a big game out of Jared Goff. They can't turn the football over, and they need to keep Jared Goff upright. And I think at least in a couple of those categories, the Lions do something well to counteract what the Chargers also do well. There is definitely a clear pathway to win this game for the Lions.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the quarterbacks, because that is part of it. And
Yes.
Jared, to Jared's credit, will be getting a full offensive line back healthy, which is number one. You get Frank Ragnow back, you get Jonah back, and now you got Graham Glasgow officially starting for the rest of the season. So again, healthy offensive line. You're getting David Montgomery back. You're getting your bell cow back. No more Craig Reynolds. By the way, love Craig, but David Montgomery, what he's been doing, you need him, especially in the red zone. We've seen how much they've struggled without him in the red zone. That's number one. But to me, Lucas, this game, and we talked about it yesterday because we did that video for Fox 2. The biggest number one thing to me is what they do up front on both sides of the ball. offensively and defensively. This game's about Aiden. This game's about Aleem McNeil. This game is about Julian Okwara, Charles Harris, even if he's active, whoever's on the other side of Aiden. Those guys are going to dictate the pace of this game, because I'll tell you one thing, that offensive line for the Chargers, besides Rashawn Slater, nobody else on that team can pass block. They stink. Rashawn Slater's side, yeah, he's been good. You know, I wouldn't say he's better than Penei Sewell, but still, he's been good. But the rest of those guys are all in question. And the same goes for the other side. You just mentioned they're, third in the league in sacks. Yep. This goes up to this This is up to this offensive line, too. It's about keeping Jared upright and getting after Justin Herbert, because we know about Keenan Allen. We know what he's going to do. That dude's going to find a way to get open. I mean, he had sauce on him on Monday night, and he still found ways to get open. And him and Herbert have a great rapport. So it's not about stopping Keenan. It's about trying to slow him down a little bit. And you know what helps that? Getting pressure on Justin Herbert. So I think this game is going to be dictated up front, Lucas.
Yeah, it's going to be dictated up front. What you were saying about the Lions' defensive line is absolutely true. But I think the way the Lions can just seal this W, run David Montgomery, run Jahmyr Gibbs behind this number one offensive line in football. Again, everybody's like, because Brandon Katz all week through the chat, the Chargers' run defense really isn't that bad. To their point, it's not. But the Lions' run game is elite, and the way to limit Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen, just like you did against Patrick Mahomes in week 1, keep them off the field. And the Lions can run the ball against any defensive line in the league. I'm sorry. Like, they have 3 Pro Bowls, in my opinion, on that offensive line. They have, if David Montgomery was able to stay healthy all year, a Pro Bowl running back. Jahmyr Gibbs is just an absolute stud. We saw that against the Raiders. You keep doing that, the Chargers are going to shoot themselves in the foot eventually with Brandon Staley as their head coach. Just keep doing the chunk plays, let that open the play-action pass. You can hit Sam Laporta, you can hit Amon-Ra St. Brown. The Lions just really need to play their game, in my opinion. By doing that, they're going to win the battle up front, like you said, Jeff.
Yeah, the biggest thing, too, time of possession, everything. I mean, Herbert's one of the most talented quarterbacks they played this year. We know that. And people will bring that up. Well, you played Jordan Love, you played Bryce Young, you played Baker. But guess what? They played Patrick Mahomes on the road and still won. So they can do it. They've shown that. And Herbert, and I saw a tweet yesterday, Lions fans, or a couple tweets actually, crapping on Justin Herbert. Guys, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Like, Herbert is still, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Hasn't been playing well this year in spots. And I talked about it a couple weeks ago, late in games. For whatever reason, a couple games this year, the last plays ended on Herbert throwing an interception. That's fine. I don't think that's going to keep up the rest of the season. He still is one of the best quarterbacks they've played. But I'm telling you one thing, this defense, especially with how they've been playing, and if Jerry Jacobs, Cam Sutton, who we kind of talked about yesterday, those guys going to have to be stout. But really, like I said, Sam, it starts up front because you get pressure on Justin Herbert. He reminds me a lot of Matthew Stafford early in his career, like guys that can put up a ton of numbers, but they're prone to making mistakes, timely sometimes mistakes. And if you can get pressure on Justin Herbert, it's only a matter of time. It really is.
Yeah, and honestly, this should be a game in which the Lions should have no trouble getting at least consistent pressure because, as you mentioned before, besides for Rashawn Slater, this Los Angeles Chargers offensive line stinks. There's nobody that's good. Are we fans of Will Clapp?
Will Clapp.
No. Hey, whoa. Put some respect on Will Clapp's name.
I will not put respect on Will Clapp's name. The only one on that offensive line who deserves respect is Rashawn Slater, and even he at times has struggled, and he missed virtually an entire season due to injury, which I think kind of hindered his development a little bit because as much as we like Rashawn Slater, as much as we have to respect him, he has not been the same guy since his incredible, I believe, second-team All-Pro rookie season. So there should be no trouble. There should be no trouble winning the battle in the trenches. And you mentioned it. You mentioned it before about the Chargers having a very, very good run defense by the numbers, which is something I kind of overlooked and slept on earlier in the week. But when I did some digging, the Chargers do have the 7th-ranked run defense when it comes to yards allowed per game. And that is mostly – and guess who has been the leaders of that run defense? It's been Joey Bosa. It's been Khalil Mack. It's been Tuli. Like, who would have thunk it,
But you know
right?
what I'm curious, though? And this was the interesting part of that when you say that because – what kind of offensive lines have they faced?
I was going to, you know what,
Tell
Jeff,
me.
You are a very, very smart man because
Let's talk about that for a second.
I was just going to bring that up because the Detroit Lions, the Chargers have a good run defense. Well, the Lions have a better run offense, and you got your full complement of weapons back together on the field for the first time in what seems like forever. As I've said before, David Montgomery has shined in a couple of games individually, had 2 100-yard games. Jahmyr Gibbs had an incredible game against the Raiders. Now let's see them do it both together. Let's see them both optimally used. I think that even though the Chargers have a good run defense, they didn't look so good when they played the Dolphins early on in the year, and they had to run up against that run offense led by Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. This is a Lions rushing attack which is elite, and I think moving forward is going to be even better than it's been if Montgomery and Gibbs can both stay healthy, because now you have both of them with the confidence, with the usage. Each of them have shined individually, and you couldn't really say that up until that Raiders game. It could be deadly, and I think the Chargers are in for a long day.
Lucas, you got the offensive lines?
Yeah.
Let's go through them.
I want you guys to tell me when you hear an offensive line better than Detroit Lions, okay?
Okay.
Week 1, Miami Dolphins.
No.
Nope.
Week 2, Tennessee Titans.
No.
Derrick Henry had 80 yards that game, just by the way.
Wow.
Minnesota Vikings.
No.
Las Vegas Raiders.
No. Hell no, actually.
Dallas Cowboys.
No.
Close. You'd think close, right?
No.
But I'm saying the Cowboys have a good
Closer
offensive
than the
line.
rest, but no.
And the Cowboys
No.
had 98 rushing yards, 40 by Dak on the ground, and Tony Pollard's not an in-between-the-tackles type of guy, so imagine David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs instead of just Tony Pollard. But anyways, Kansas City Chiefs.
Close,
No,
but no.
no.
I would lean Lions, but that's closer than the Cowboys.
Juwan Taylor stinks.
Yes. Chicago Bears.
No.
And finally, last week, the mighty New York Jets.
No.
No.
That's the worst in
We
football.
can agree that this is probably a respectable run defense, but if there's a week when it's going to get exposed, it's probably going to be this Sunday.
Yeah, and that's the thing. King Tommy says, do they have a good run defense, or is their pass defense so atrocious that teams just attack in the air?
That's a good
Well, that's
way
the
to do
thing.
it, too.
If your pass defense is last in the NFL, then your defense is bad. Because it's not like their rush defense has been dominant. It hasn't been like the Lions' rush defense, for example. Shout out Lions rush defense. It's been good though. But when you're giving up so many passing yards and that has cost them games. I mean, the Chargers, with all of the things that they do well this year, they should not be a 4-4 team, but yet there they are. Because their pass defense is dead last. You can't do that. In the modern NFL, that is detrimental. You just can't do that.
You know what's interesting, too? And I found this stat. The Chargers right now are top 10 in big plays, meaning more than 25 yards,
Yes.
25 yards or more passes, yards passing, whatever, big plays. And they're 9th right now. You know who's number 1? Random thought?
I wonder who.
CJ Stroud and the Texans.
Hey.
Isn't that crazy? They have 24 big plays, meaning 25 or more yards through the air. And the Chargers are 9th with 19. So this is an offense that is reliant on big plays. Austin Eckler, as much as he's great in the passing game, he's not a guy that's going to get big chunks in the run game. He's more of a bruiser. In the red zone, he's really good. But he's not someone I'm sitting there going, oh, yeah, this Lions defense is going to have to be on all toes. Like, they'll be fine. No, they'll be fine with Austin Eckler, I think, personally. Maybe in the passing game he's a threat. But other than that, it's about the big plays for the Chargers. That's what they rely on. Now they don't have Mike Williams as of right now. He's injured. But Josh Palmer.
Josh Palmer's out, too.
He's out?
Yeah, and
Yes,
right
he's
now,
gone.
just for context.
That's even better.
Joshua Kelly leads the Chargers in rushing yards. And I know Eckler was hurt, but it's with 323 yards.
See that?
They have no ground game.
Yeah, that's the biggest point. And I know people in the chat. I mean, you got Adam in the chat too. Shout out to him, the GOAT. He says their defensive head coach blows games more often than it. Oh my God!
Let's go. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, yeah. Oh well.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is a good way to not finish that
yeah.
one.
No. I want to stay on air. Let's. Yeah. Wow. Is he? I mean, he does. I don't. Yeah. I'm trying to
Just move on.
Yeah, okay, you know what? He might be on. But anyway. Yeah, that's messed up. God, no. Wow. But Brandon Staley does stink, though. And if you're talking about who do you trust in this game, you're giving the head coaching edge to Dan Campbell.
Well, and you mentioned something earlier about the Chargers and their big plays. Who are the wide receivers which have given them a lot of big plays? Like, quiet is kept because Mike Williams is going to miss the vast majority of the year. When he was on the field, he was balling. When Joshua Palmer has been on the field, he's been balling. Right now, when you're the Los Angeles Chargers, you basically got Keenan Allen, who is still elite, and then Quentin Johnston, who has basically been the opposite of Tank Dell and Puka Nacua and Jordan Addison. Quentin Johnston's awful right now.
He's been bad.
And the Lions, there's no way the Lions give up the coming out party to Quentin Johnston,
No.
right? There's
You'd
not a
hope
chance in
not.
hell. Not a chance in hell.
If it does, it's a good sign. Like, that means Keenan Allen probably isn't doing his thing. They're like,
That's
oh,
fair.
because no Josh Palmer. It'd be a good sign.
You know what? You know what's interesting too, watching last night's game, is how the Panthers kind of approach DJ Moore. Is kind of how I think the Lions will approach Keenan. Like, double Keenan, make everyone else beat you. Like, just he's the guy. Like, make, you know, who they got?
Donald Parham.
Yes, the 6'8".
Gerald Everett.